Welcome everyone to Lunch and Learn, presented by Coda Bears. My name is Bill Golis. I'll be presenting today on the topic of the buyer's workbench in Epicor, Connecticut. What is the buyer's workbench and what do you need to have it? You have to have supplier relationship and management license for the buyer's workbench to be available. If you have that, it's located at material management, supplier relationship management, general operations, and then the buyer's a workbench. If you are a buyer, it will populate you by default as the buyer on the workbench. And you can change and select for their buyers if you're authorized for their buyer record. And from the tool, you can review purchase orders and RFQs, and they are grouped by urgency, by date, basically. What's overdue, what's due today, this week, and in the future. So from this tool, you can use sorting and grouping on the grid so things are more to your liking for how you want to work. Grouping does not yet work for the new suggestions in Kinetic 2024, and the open to a record issue has some issues. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to do a demo here now in both Kinetic and in Classic. So we should be able to go directly to the PO that's relevant to manage the individual records from the buyer's workbench. So you should be able to get the PO entry, generate suggestions, RFQ entry, and supplier responses for RFQ. And then some additional programs that are handy to use from the buyer's workbench is your purchase advisor, your supplier tracker, and your part advisor. So let's see how this works in real life. I will start a demo here in Kinetic 2024. Let me switch my screens real quick. And you now should be seeing the home screen for Epicor Kinetic. So let's go to the supplier workbench. On the main menu, under material management, supplier relationship management, general options, it is our top choice. I'll select that. Now this defaulted to Brian Howard, as that is the default for this a database. And as you can see here on the left, we have a tree that has RFQs on the top and then POs on the bottom. There's not much for RFQs. There's just one that's overdue. But on the POs here, you can see they are divided up by late, this week, and then suggestions, and then in the future, and things for today even. So let's have a look at those. There are lots that are late because this is the old database from Epicor. And you can go into a PO here and you can select it. And then once you get the grid here, you can select what PO that you want to work with. You can see the information here, the release. And from this button here, you can go directly to the PO entry for 4211. I can make my edits here once I unapprove. Let's say we're going to change our quantity to 150. And then we're going to save that. And we're going to reapprove it. And then we're done with that. So from this grid here, we can do things like, if we group by supplier, we can see all your POs by supplier. So you can see these are all late. I have 23 things that are late from this supplier globe. So I better call them and work on these urgently as these are late. And when you're grouped by supplier, that can be handy. You can also group by part number, which can be handy as well. That way, if you have multiple POs for the same part, you can see them. Like here, this one has 7 lines, so that is fun. That's probably fine. But you can see the lines individually. 7 releases for this one. So you can also see what's due for today, right from this grid view, and you can manage it from here. If you select your line, you can go to PO entry. That'll take you right there. So. And then you got this week. So this should be the same record. This has the PO with the lines and releases. Here for this week, it just has the PO. But either way, if you select PO entry, it's going to take you to that PO 4125 directly. And then you can do your edits there. Also, from your grid view here, you can do things like, let me find a better part. Let's ungroup this. And let's take a look at something like this part here. So if we want to see more information on this part, I can select it. And I can open with our part tracker, part entry, part advisor. That's going to show you, have you quoted it, have you sold it, have you produced it before, so you can get a wealth of information right from your buyers and Workbench using the related programs. And let's go ahead and take a look at this in Kinetic. Once I show suggestions here, when you see suggestions in the classic menu, when you select one on the left, it's going to bring up the PO suggestion form. So from here, I could say, hey, go ahead and buy this, and I could just save that, and then I can execute my actions and say generate, and say okay, and that will generate that PO, and that goes away. So from here, but you have to select in the tree for the classic view on suggestions. Let's go back and take a look at the Kinetic interface, which has a few issues, but I want to show it. So here we are. Oh, and again, you can select any buyer that you are authorized on. So I can select Ed or Eddie or anyone else, but I won't for now. So this has the same information as we had on the classic screen, of course, but it's displayed slightly different. So, because you always get a grid from Kinetic. Although the challenge with this right now is when you select a record here, you should be able to go straight to PO entry, which you can. This should open 4126. It does not. So hopefully they're working on this. I have not heard if this is a reported issue yet. I will check into it. Back to our Kinetic and Workbench. So yeah, have the same functionality here. You can see, today's POs, this week, a future, same thing for RFQs. And you can, go to the RFQ by selecting this here, or to the supplier responses if you're familiar with RFQs. One difference between Kinetic and Classic is that on the suggestions, when you select that, within the screen right here, this is actually the grid from PO suggestions. You can actually select buy right from the line without even going to the interface for that particular record and say process. And then I'll just say POs and okay, and that top row should go away. Then we have a PO created, and I can select it here. So if you were all in Kinetic, I believe this would work, but when you're in Classic, it does not go here to the right, to the record that you selected on the grid. And that is the basics of the buyer's workbench. It is very handy because you just see what's related to you. You see everything sorted by dates when things are due, so you can see what's has to be managed and what what is in the future. Thanks, everyone.